When you buy a designer handbag, it does not come in a plastic bag.
And your new iPhone isn't just going to turn up in a jiffy bag. Welcome to the Sunday Property Breakfast podcast, brought to you by Adrian and Candice at Anderson Jones. Every week we'll be discussing a different property market topic, and don't forget the regular Sunday Property Breakfast every Sunday at 10 a.m. on Facebook. Welcome to the Sunday Property Breakfast podcast special, and today's subject matter is all about high value property. And we're talking probably in our area between 1 million and 2 million pounds. And we've noticed, particularly over the last 6-7 months or so, started towards the end of last year and this year, that there are more and more of them staying on the market, taking longer to sell and not selling.
And those are normally the ones between about 1 to 2 million, isn't that right?
That is, I think, the price band that we're broadly talking about. Once you go locally above 2 million, you're talking about very exceptional.
Yes.
And they are sort of broad 1 million and 2 million, but I think we get the gist of the sort of properties that we're talking about. And just to give you a little bit of specific evidence on this, because we've been looking at this in detail. At the moment, locally in the patch we cover, which is Farnham, Fleet and Hook, there are 379 properties today that have been on the market for 12 weeks or more. And interestingly, for 16 weeks or more, there's 286. There's quite a lot of those. And that figure has been, for the last or preceding sort of 6 or 8 months, has been fairly constant, just over 200. And we now see that figure not just over 200, but getting closer to 300. So, and then we looked at those properties, and quite a lot of them are in the higher value.
So a lot of listeners will be wondering, and if you've been one of the people affected by this might be a question you definitely want to have answered. Why are there so many properties, should we use the term, stuck on the market currently?
I think the biggest overriding factor is the economic and political background that don't need to expand on. And, in this week, when we're recording this, there's just, in fact, every week there's another big story coming out. And just the general background of economics and politics is creating uncertainty. That uncertainty affects everybody, but we know from experience of the people that we deal with that, again, as a simple summary judgment that is quite correct, it does affect people with higher value property more. They are more sensitive to it. They may be working within those sort of industries, maybe working in the city, they're working within finance, so they're more susceptible to it. And also just the value of the property and the assets they hold have a greater potential for losing value and not gaining value. So I think they're far more sensitive to that as well.
So we know that a lot of these properties, over a certain amount, you are having to take out a second mortgage, so to speak, when it comes to stamp duty.
Yeah, if only you could take out a second mortgage, because of course you have to pay it.
You do.
You can't.
You do.
There's many things you can borrow for the future. We are quite big advocates of the idea of when somebody buys their dream home, that very often somebody will actually spend more on that property. But by the time they've done the work to it, they've actually spent more than it's worth that very day they've finished it. But they've done the right thing because they found the property they want where they want, and they've done it in the way they want it. Stamp duty straight out of the back pocket. And just to give people an idea, if you haven't moved for a while, if you're buying £1 million property today and it's your only home, you pay stamp duty of £43,750.
It's still a lot of money.
To break that down, between 925. And there are stages of this, a bit like tax. You don't pay it all at a high level, but anything above 925,000 to 1.5 million, you pay 10% stamp duty. Above 1.5 million, it's 12%. So if you're buying a second home at £2 million, and from our experience, most of the people buying at that sort of price band do have other property.
Yep.
And nobody's going to have any sympathy for anybody having to pay a lot of tax when they can buy a home of that value. But this is all about the fluidity of the property market. It's not necessarily about that individual's, a sob story for somebody who can afford a house of that value. It's about the fact that the property market then starts to stagnate. Somebody buying at £2 million with another property, the stamp duty on that purchase is £153,750. Say, not a sob story, not a hardship story. It's
No.
just a fact of a lot of money in tax that just has to be paid on the day you buy the property.
Mm.
And I reckon probably only half the buyers that we see in that £1 to £2 million category actually calculated that figure specific to them. They know it's a lot. They know it's gone up. But I bet if you said to most people, have you realised how much the stamp duty is on this £1.5 million house? They wouldn't give you the answer.
For a lot of people, in particular when they're looking at buying a property, as we know, they automatically have to factor in the stamp duty cost, because if you don't do that, you're then stuck in a situation where you can't afford to buy the property. Now, with that said, there's a lot of emphasis at the moment on the economy, and we know that people still need to buy, people still need to sell. What do you think at the moment the impact is on the market?
I think it's just created the stamp duty is a factual thing, and that I think you're right. People are factoring that in. I think sometimes a bit later in the buying process than they probably ought to have done. But that is just a simple fact. Your mortgage survey is going to cost you X £100. Your survey will cost you £2,000, £3,000, £4,000.
Yep.
Your legal fees will cost you X. Stamp duty is just a simple purchasing cost, but very high. So people are having to factor that in. I think the cost of that is suppressing prices. Mm-hmm. In the lower end of the market, it's probably stopping prices increasing more.
That's correct.
But I think at the higher end of the market, it's more than keeping the lid on it. I think at that end of the market, it's actually being factored into the offer somebody will make.
That's right.
When you're looking at a figure of 50 to £150,000 in this broad category we've talked about, that's a lot of money. And they just think, right, if I have to pay that in tax, that comes off the offer that I might make.
A name which not a lot of people like hearing, Trump.
That just breeds uncertainty. I think we could have a whole series of podcasts about him. I think the biggest issue, taking an overall view, he is not our prime minister, but what he says and what he does has immediate impact on the world. And the thing I see, the problem I have, without getting into the pros and cons of whether you agree or disagree with any of his views, is just the uncertainty of it, because it changes a lot. And that causes, depending on how close you are and how directly it affects your business. I mean, I don't work in the city, I don't know many people anymore who do, but if you are working in the financial markets, how you adjust to tariffs on a day-to-day basis that he's changing, that makes that whole market very sensitive. And we're looking at a band of property value here where quite a few people in that will have money in shares, or their pension funds will be affected by some of those. So I think that can have an impact.
Well, it certainly does. So there have been some figures released recently where it's shown yet another exodus of British citizens moving abroad to countries like, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and all the way through to Malaysia. And that is because a lot of these people have taken on the debt, so the big home, the schools their children go to. And when you can't afford these things anymore because you are being squeezed financially because of the impact that many different factors has on the business, so to speak, if you get the opportunity and you can go, you're going to go. And I know a lot of people that have done that and they're very happy doing so. But we can't control what's happening in the world.
Just
in
on
terms
that,
of politics.
something you don't know, actually, because I just read this before we got here.
Share.
I just saw earlier today, Knight Frank, an agent you may have heard of, they today have said that the end of the non-dom tax and the higher stamp duty, their quote was that the prime London property activity is into a new low amid a wealth exodus. I scribbled that note about 20 minutes ago. Very relevant to what you just said, And I don't think it's not a mass exodus. We're talking here about a small number of people, but these are a significant number of people in this high-end market. And I think we're referring there as well to the London prime market. But I think what needs to be remembered is that the trickle effect of the London prime market affects the the £1 to £2 million homes
That's right.
that are in Hampshire and Surrey where we're working.
That's right. So we know we can't control politics. We know we can't control the economy. But when it comes to our listeners, what is it that they can control when it comes to their home?
When it comes to selling your home, you're right. And the only way we could control politics would be, for you to become an MP. Please don't go down that route because I need you as a business partner.
No,
there's only two things. We say this on our valuation. There's only two things that as a homeowner you can actually influence. And that's the price and the presentation of the property. We've talked in these podcasts, in our social media posts, quite a bit about price.
Yes.
And the fact that on the bad side of things, there are agents who deliberately overvalue. And I think we just have to move that to one side as bad agency. And it speaks for itself that it's a not a good thing to do. I think in this, looking into some research before we did, I think in this price band we've talked about, invariably these houses will have one or two wow factors.
Yes.
It could just be their look. It could be the fact they're sat in a couple of acres. They might overlook a river or some water. They might just be in a particularly brilliant road that everybody knows, one of those 2 or 3 roads in that town or village that people love. And I think that it's very easy for an owner and an agent to put so much value on that really great couple of things about the house that you don't always then balance it with the negatives, which we're often looking here at properties that have probably been lived in for a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
And so that fantastic garden may have just become a bit woody and overgrown. The beautiful looking house still looks beautiful. But if you start looking at it, windows, soffits, fascias, guttering, needs a bit of attention to it. And, that fantastic kitchen that was fitted 15, 20 years ago, which still looks amazing, doesn't suit a modern lifestyle or a modern look that a new buyer coming in would say, love this beautiful old kitchen, but it actually doesn't work for my family because it's not got the big freezer, it's not got the breakfast bar, it's not got the things that we now want in a kitchen because they've changed so much. Yeah.
Tell me, do you like a breakfast bar?
I do, because it has a beautiful function in the morning for coffee and it has a beautiful function in the evening for a gin or a glass of wine. So that's why I like a breakfast bar. And I think that's an important point. And not every property in this price band, but the majority of them have a wow factor.
Yeah.
A couple of things about them that people say, I'd always love to buy that house. I'd love to have that much garden.
It's the garden. It's the space.
Garden settings, tranquility, whatever it may be. And you can sometimes overvalue that.
That's right.
And not factor in the other bit. And then coming back to this presentation thing. So that's the price element of it, where sometimes I think there is an over-optimism or a blindsiding the negatives which balance the price.
Yeah.
You're then looking at presentation, and with a few exceptions, most of these properties in this price band, particularly towards the 2 million as opposed to the 1 million, haven't been sold for 15, 20 or more years.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is an element of the presentation not being really sharp. And I think sometimes because it's a great looking house, it's in the grounds, whatever it may be, there can be an element of complacency.
Yeah.
We started this podcast with you saying about a designer handbag.
That's correct.
You don't buy them particularly, but if you did, it wouldn't turn up in a Tesco bag.
No, hell no.
Or the equivalent of a Tesco bag, because Tesco fun enough don't make designer handbags. But you get my point. It turns up in beautiful suede bag and all the rest of it. And a new iPhone, you've bought, or a Samsung, it doesn't have to be iPhone. You've bought this fantastic new phone. It doesn't just come in a jiffy bag and be packed away. It comes in this amazing, sensual, touchy box, which just feels fantastic.
Yeah.
Jack, who does our podcast for us, Jack, big shout out to you as always, talked about a friend buying a new microphone that cost an obscene amount of money. Did it just turn up in a box? No, it's the same with anything of high value. And I think some of the really great properties are not being packaged.
You see, the word packaging with this is very, very important. Now, how would you package let's say a 5-bedroom home sitting on half an acre of land, how would you package that? You've just said earlier that specifically focusing on a house that is tired, it's still beautiful, it's still got that something special. How would you, as an agent, package that?
The overall sweeping thing that we would do is, if I can add into your scenario, half an acre, 5-bedroom, if we can factor in as well, lived there for 20 years.
Yeah.
With that comes a lot of love and a cherished home. And you feel it when you go into these houses.
Yes,
you feel the history and the love that's in there. But what comes with that is the history of belongings and stuff and pictures and the spare room full of bits. And if that stays, people don't see beyond that. So
Very true.
let's pick a simple example. A couple bought it when they were 40 with a couple of children. 20 odd years later, children have left home. A lot of the work that was done would have been done 20 years ago, 50 years, maybe some new carpet somewhere, but a lot of the core work was done a long while ago. And the way we live our lives a generation later is very different to the way we live them now. So if you've got this couple in their 60s, and the way the house is laid out and designed is probably very different to their own children's house in their 30s and 40s. The idea that you have a kitchen and a lounge diner as a new development, well, they just don't exist anymore. That boxy kitchen with nothing else. It's a kitchen diner and then a separate lounge.
Yeah.
And on a bigger scale, on some of these houses, that's the way they need to be redesigned. So what we have to try and do is take those people out of the house and imagine it with the new type of buyer coming in.
And how would you go about doing that? Staging,
presentation, focusing on and this doesn't mean putting in a new kitchen. We're talking about clearing the space so people can see it. So we stage it, we present it, and I think the key thing with, again, quite a few of these houses, there will be a few tired rooms that aren't used very much. Don't take a photo of them. Or if you take a photo, don't show it. The listing, the social media post can be the movie trailer.
The description.
Yeah, the description.
The intro.
Yeah. How often have you seen, so somebody's searching a 5-bedroom detached house.
Yeah.
The first thing it says on Rightmove or Zoopla is a 5-bedroom detached house. It drives me around the bend.
Or rare to the market.
Yeah, but the first sentence that the agent has then written after, this is what I'm searching, this is what Rightmove call it in blunt detail, 5-bedroom detached home. The very first paragraph says, this 5-bedroom detached home. You think, oh dear, I already knew that.
Proud to bring to the market.
Proud to bring to the
market.
That's
the other one.
I think we have done an odd one of those. I hope I never do them again.
We have in the past, I'm sure we have.
Yeah, we probably have. But I think it's again, the description is something about putting people in there. I remember one we did recently, much lower value, but we talked about a cottage just off the green in Hartley Whitney being whether it's muddy boots after a dog walk in the winter or walking back off the green and having a glass of wine in the garden after a day watching cricket.
Exactly.
You just start putting people in the property with their lifestyle. And that's what we're doing with these properties. And I know we're surmising here. We could have a property at this value that, is in really, really good order and has only been lived in for 5 years, and for whatever reason the owners are moving away or they're moving to something else. But if you look at what's on the market, not sold, in the main, it's older property. A lot of the work was done a while back. It's high quality work, but come back to the kitchen scenario. It's not about the fact the kitchen isn't great quality. It's about the fact the look of it is dated, but it's the layout as well.
That's it.
And we've seen that with quite a few kitchens where it just doesn't suit people coming in and say, great looking kitchen, but it doesn't work for our family.
Here's one for you. An ideal property to sell. What would that look like and where would it be located?
It would be one that we've been involved in for 6 months.
Why 6 months?
Well, okay, it could be 8, it could be 4. But it's one that we've been invited in to look at ahead of selling, given a few pointers on presentation, maintenance, pre-surveys, all the things we do in the home selling workshop.
Yeah.
So by the time it comes to the market, the owner has got a better understanding of their home. We've turned it into the home that the people will want to buy as opposed to the home they're living in.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll give them a better chance of selling the property for the best price in the shortest period of time with the least amount of stress.
And what would you like this property to look like if you could choose? Yes, you.
Well, it wouldn't need to be a 5-bedroom detached house, but it would be, for me, it would be open, crisp, clean, very light.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't need to have a big garden. Elements of privacy.
Privacy is very, very important. Yeah.
But just, I would go for something clean, open, lots of light.
So open,
Fairly
meaning
pale palette.
downstairs, an open plan. Yeah.
Not totally. You still have to have rooms that, study room, a snug room.
Yeah.
Okay,
so hang on. I'm dying to know.
You got a house for me?
Well, I might. So you open up the front door of this property. What is it you would like to see?
Openness. Bright. Clean. Crisp. Doesn't necessarily need to be modern, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This could be a 100-year-old property, but it's just crisp and fresh in its presentation.
Okay. That's good. And would it be more of a lifestyle property for you, or?
Would be for me, because I don't have to worry about, children living in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would want to have a dog in the house.
Or two.
Probably keep it to one. But yeah, so it can be. Lifestyle house makes it sound like it's just lifestyle, like a design. It can be a designer handbag. It's a lifestyle. Yes. No, this is a lifestyle because it's the lifestyle you want to lead. So it's got a music room. It's got a spacious area. It's got a sociable kitchen that, when you're cooking, I would only invite people around to who I would cook for, who would sit in the kitchen with me while I'm cooking it. I don't want people sat in the pompous dining room while I bring out on a butler's tray my first of 7 courses.
Yeah, I can't imagine you doing that. But going back again to the concept of how, again, when you buy a designer handbag, how that's packaged. A designer handbag is an investment for many people. And that's also part of their lifestyle, right? What they'd like to portray. For you, your home would be not just your sanctuary. It would be part of your lifestyle, but equally it would be that investment that you have made because it is something you need. You need that openness. You need that security. You want privacy in your garden.
I think I'm of an age where I'm no longer, it wouldn't bother me in the slightest what anybody else thought about my house. Yeah. But I know there are a lot of people who do.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, by the way. It's an outward sign. It's why do people buy sometimes an expensive car? Yeah, it might be because it drives well, but it also looks well.
Yeah.
I think I'm at a point where I wouldn't really care what anybody else thought about the house if it worked for me at the time. But this thing, coming back to this packaging of something, one of the things that occurred to me as well, again, looking into the research of why are these. It's an interesting thing. You've got I don't want to knock your more middle market houses, but a lot of them are fairly straightforward houses. We all know that. It's not insulting them in any way, but they're just more normal, more practical day-to-day houses. So you tend to think that anything that's a little bit special would create more interest and would sell. Bearing in mind we're living in an affluent area, you can borrow money. And, we're not living in any sense of recession or we're not in war. We've got problems and conflicts, but we're not in those problem areas. Why are these gems not selling as quickly as they could? Looking at that, I looked at a couple of what I'd call the better known older agents, who deal with a lot of more expensive property. And I thought that the brand of the agent was getting in the way of the brand of the house.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, why?
Well, I think that And I'm not knocking those agents. They've been around for 100 years or more, and they are exceptional agents in many, many ways about the way they care. And, exactly, in the way they care and they look after people, and they are, they have a chartered surveyor basis to their business. So, their ethics and their work element is, cannot be questioned.
Yes, yeah.
But I think sometimes they don't necessarily then look at the property and say, how do we brand this property? And it doesn't mean you suddenly create a marketing name for number 37 Acacia Gardens, but you need to actually package that house and need to give that house an identity to make it stand out. Because from those simple local figures, there are, nearly 300 properties that have been on the market for over 16 weeks, the majority of which are higher value. Buyers, for the first time since we opened the business, have got some choice.
Well, that's true.
And we used to have a really good property in this price band.
Yeah.
People were viewing it. I said, what else are you looking at? Not much else. There was another one, but I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
We've shown a couple this last weekend. It was at 1 million. Mm-hmm. So it's at the bottom end of it, but still nonetheless an expensive house in Sherfield-on-Loddon. One of the viewers had seen 4 that day. And that wasn't happening before. Yeah.
It's overwhelming.
So the house needs to stand out.
It does.
In the mass of property.
Well, it's number one is the house. I do feel that the way the house is presented, or as you said, packaged, is very important. But it's also down to the agent. So if you've got an agent who's personable, who knows the ins and outs of the property, it's very, very important. Well, let's talk cars for a second. It's like buying, dare I say, a Lamborghini, for example. If you know nothing about cars, you know nothing about how a Lamborghini works or how to drive it, because apparently you need to do a whole driving course and a whole thing. How can you sell that car if you don't know the important things about the car?
I agree with that. Can I extend that analogy?
Please do.
You're not just selling 1 or 2 Lamborghinis or Ferraris or Aston Martins. Mm-mm. You've got 20 of them.
Okay.
And you can't deal with that many properties at the same time with the same care and attention.
No, you can't. No.
And I know that some of the other agents have a bigger infrastructure of people in the offices.
That's right.
But when it comes down to the real detail of how you market the property and then the serious negotiations and discussions, there's usually only 1 or 2 people in that office who can have those conversations. Again, this is not belittling the rest of those team, but that those other people don't have the experience and life experience to deal with somebody in a £2 million house who's going through health issues, lifestyle issues, divorce, all the other reasons why people sell these houses. So it's usually the same 1 or 2 people who are dealing with it, and they've got 10, 15, 20, 25 of these properties.
Yeah. And this is the thing, again, it is down to speaking about designer handbags, how it's packaged, why you would buy a designer handbag, etc., or an iPhone, how that looks, how it's packaged. I personally do feel that choosing the right agent is essential, because that agent will make sure that your home, the actual marketing of your home, is managed correctly, so that it is packaged in a way that you need it to be in order for you to get the best price possible for your property. Because again, it is probably, for most people, your biggest asset you will ever have.
It's the classic 2 things we talk about, which is a rare thing, something that is your most valuable asset, but is also the security and roof over your family's head. And we've spoken time and time again that that's a very rare combination of things.
Well, it's overwhelming, first of all, looking for whether it's your first purchase, whether it's because you've got to upsize, downsize, whatever the case may be. It is so overwhelming, and it can be so exhausting looking for your home, right? But when it comes to selling your home, it's also daunting, because it's your security. You don't necessarily know what's going to happen next. And when you've got somebody who can help manage that stress effectively, sit down with you and show your marketing strategy, which will work for you, that's very, very important. We were speaking earlier on about properties being on the market for more than 12 weeks. How would you go back to a client to sit and speak with them about why that property is still on the market today?
Well, again, 16 weeks or more. Some of these have been on the market for a year. If you went and if we met an owner today and said, I think we might find you a buyer in the next year, they'd probably say, well, you may as well sort of leave now. And I think we're not trying to make out that we sell all of these properties we take on within a week and that we have this magic pill or magic recipe. It comes back to dealing with things in detail at the beginning. But also, if you are only limiting yourself to a certain number of properties at any one time and the initial marketing doesn't work, and you've done a few viewings and it's not quite created the impact, because we're only dealing with a few of them, you can think, right, what are we going to do on that particular house?
So is it a marketing review?
It's a marketing review. We are lucky or skilled that probably 3 out of 4 properties we sell from the open house, not necessarily right on that day, but with the follow-up viewing or when somebody's then in a proceedable position, we tie the sale up.
Yeah.
And then we'll have 1 out of 4 which don't work first time, and therefore we have to think, what are we going to do now? And it's not just price, can be, but it's presentation, it's where we place it, it's rewriting descriptions, different photos, twilight photography. Maybe we need to do better drone shot, something like that. So we look at those all the time because we're only looking at a few.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're looking after those individuals and their properties as well as we can, not a generic. What was the phrase somebody used last week? I'd not heard it before. Portal and pray.
Portal and pray.
Yeah, basically, and again, a bit of a damning judgment of most agents, but it came from a vendor. Shove it on the portals and pray and hope that a buyer comes in, and if they don't, then there's no backup strategy. There's no.
It's quite sad, isn't it? Because when we tell people what we do for a living, there is an element of, what are they going to think? But because we are who we are, Anderson Jones, and we believe in what we do what we do because we understand there's a big gap in the market where you've got to go through a very important process, which is personable. You got to have the sensitivity, but equally you got to have the right tools to work with the right client. So when a lot of people have lost faith, let's not use faith, that's religious. When a lot of people have lost their trust in real estate agents, what would you say to a potential vendor you're sitting in front of who's seen 5 other agents before you? What would you say? What would you do differently, do you think, that the other agents might not be doing?
We've already mentioned a few of those in terms of less property, dealing with the business owners.
Yeah.
We have an incredible backup support, some of which is physical people like Sophia and Lucy and Alex. Some of it is just unbelievable tech, which I tell you, I don't know how it works, but it does. It enables us to spend time doing things like this, spend time with vendors and buyers, and do the detail, which is the critical stuff. I think another colleague said the other day in a presentation to a vendor, and I thought it was really quite a good about how honest do you want me to be? And he was talking here about the condition of the property when they then go around and look at it.
Ooh.
How honest do you want me to be?
Yeah.
And it was opening up. It's very difficult to go into somebody's house and criticize it because it can sound like you're criticizing their home.
Yeah, it's just their personal space, right?
What we're really saying is, don't care how you live. I don't like that painting. It's irrelevant. I don't like your kitchen. It's irrelevant. We're commenting on how people will perceive your house. And therefore we're giving you advice that will get you the best buyer, the best price for your home. That is our job. Our job is not to walk around saying, oh, this is amazing, don't do anything with it. And I've heard agents say that. We've been on presentations where somebody says, oh, the previous agent said I don't even need to look at that. And I said, you do.
Well, that's all coming back to the service we provide, which is the home selling workshops.
Yeah.
Right. And we've sat with a couple of people who have been in their properties for over 30 years, and they start hearing what Adrian will have to say about the different steps, what you need to look out for. And you can actually see them sitting back and going, I didn't know. Oh my goodness, really? I've got a big cracked tile in the kitchen. When you walk over it, it actually wobbles a little bit. Or oh goodness, the fascia boards that the paint is peeling off of, I'm going to have to start to get onto this. And it's better to get onto doing those jobs now. You can obviously then, you've got enough time to kind of stretch it out, as opposed to, I need to get my property on the market now because I need to have it sold within the next 3 months, let's say. And then there's a whole world of stress and possibly a whole can of worms which might open. Whereas if you know beforehand what you're dealing with, there is power. And again, you've got the control.
In an ideal world, somebody would approach us 6 months ahead of selling the home, say, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
Repair the gate, prune that tree, paint bedroom 4, clear a few surfaces, get legally prepared, all of that.
Yeah.
We do, though, get the scenario of somebody who phones on a Monday morning saying, just seen the house we really want to buy. We better get our property on the market now.
Oh, yes.
And that's fine. We'll react to that and, again, do the best possible job in that time because we are, again, not living in this ideal world of bringing the property to the market, but, serving their need. We need to find a buyer now quickly. But ideally, you would, nearly all these podcasts come back to preparation.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Be prepared ahead of what you want to do, legals, survey, home selling workshops, photography, everything. Be prepared and you'll just get a better result as a homeowner.
Here's another one for you. And it depends how you feel. Should we touch on the subject of you've got your property on the market, you've got a couple of offers through the door, and the one offer you have is the price you're looking for. However, it's a long chain.
It's balancing things up.
How would you balance things up?
It depends on whether you've found your property you want to buy. So coming back to the scenario of somebody contacts us saying, I've just seen something I want to buy, and we've got a higher price but long chain, or indeed still not a complete chain, and somebody's made a bit of an offer but proceedable. We've got one right at this moment where we've got a cash buyer, genuine cash buyer, and the owner is saying, talk to them because they give me a solution, they give me simplicity. We've had chains before that have fallen apart. So one buyer, we like that. It's just a balance, and it's again coming back to understanding the client. If the client is relaxed about the move, doesn't have a specific ticking clock on a date for tax reasons, job reasons, children reasons, university, whatever it may be. If they just want to get the best result, and time can be more relaxed.
Absolutely.
If they are impatient, and we've had clients who said, I haven't got a ticking clock, but you know what? If I'm coming on the market, I want to find a buyer. Let's get this done and let's move on.
Yeah.
We've got other vendors who say, we'll take our time, find the right buyer, get the right price. Knowing your client.
Yeah. And I guess it's also understanding the chain.
Totally. And digging beneath the truth of that chain. We had one last year, middle of summer last year, where 3 months into it, we discovered there was another property at the bottom of the chain.
Oh, I remember that one. Oh, yeah.
The agent who thought they were at the bottom of the chain, or said they were, their buyer, who we thought was unencumbered, first-time buyer at the bottom of the chain, was selling another property. The only reason it didn't show up, and it wasn't on with an agent, it was a housing association sale, so it was being sold through the housing association.
Yeah.
But bottom line was there was still a buyer beneath them, and the agent selling didn't know.
Yeah, it was very important to know these things. It's really, really important.
It's an exceptional case, but
yeah. I mean, that was pretty stressful. I'm not going to lie. It was very, very stressful.
Probably the most stressful one of last year.
It was. And how we worked it was I made sure to sit down with the vendors, have that cup of tea, have a chat, understand how they're feeling, what their fears are, their worries, concerns. Go back to Adrian. Adrian goes, right, get it. Give me a day. I'm going to come up with some solutions. And then we get together, discuss it, and sit with the clients. And we find that really does help, because at the end of the day, you're getting paid for the job you do. Well, we're getting paid. It's not a case of just showing people around, marketing your property online on the portals. You become our responsibility to a degree. So we have to make sure that we see it through with you.
We're proud to say we sell 85 to 90% of the properties we take on, because we've said this before in some short, punchy, midday minutes. We're not interested in your instruction. And people say, "What? Why on earth are you not interested?" Well, we are, because we have to start the process. We're interested in seeing it through. We're waiting for that day when we hand your keys to your new buyer.
It's very, very important.
This has been a good one. I think my takeaway from this, because we talk about this all the time, but it then becomes more structured when we do one of these, and this is more of a chat between the two of us. But I'm hoping that what's come out of it is that, and it goes back to what we said at the beginning, just because you've got a really good property that's got 2 or 3 things about it which are really special and exceptional, don't be complacent. Don't think that alone will sell it. You need to do something with it, because at the moment, the supply and demand is lots of supply, and demand is lower and more sensitive. It's still there. It is. People are still buying at these levels, but they are far more sensitive to what they're looking at.
And what I'd like to add to it, and from what I've taken away from this today, is, again, as a potential vendor, knowledge is power. So definitely shop around for different agents. Have a look and see what they are willing to do for you, the client, to get you the best price possibly.
And then realise it's us.
And then, but really, you need to be able to sit down with your agent and go, right, what is the actual plan? Because just valuing the property, putting it on the market, it's not going to be enough. You need to have the tools, you need to have the knowledge. And if you don't have that, you do feel that you don't have any control. And again, it's very important to know that you've got the control. And you wanted to add something there.
Well, no, coming back to this point of, there are a lot of things that will wobble that control, outside factors.
Again, it's how you package it.
But you can still retain control of the core thing that you can control. There'll be plenty of people to try and swerve you off course. It could be your buyer, it could be the surveyor, it could be, again, changes in government policy which affect things directly, like a mortgage rate, which could go the wrong way. If it goes a good way, then that's fine. But control what you can control and prepare for it.
That's it. And again, preparing is important, but it comes back down to the entire package. It's not just how you package your home to be sold. Remember, it is bigger than that. So, food for thought. When you buy a designer handbag, it doesn't come in a plastic bag.
If you get an iPhone in a Jiffy bag, it's probably not a legitimate iPhone. Thank you for listening, watching another podcast special. We love doing these. We've got loads more coming up. We've got quite a serious subject matter coming up soon about separation and matrimonial, which unfortunately affects quite a few people. Questions. We've got all sorts of different ones coming up. What were you going to say?
Questions. So if any of you would like us to speak about different topics, certain types of topics, please email us on the link below. And if you'd like to share your stories when it comes to what you've experienced during your... You
want some bad ones, don't you?
I want some meat. Give me some juice. It's very, very important, because I think the more people can get their story out there, speak about it, share their experience, it's also very important for not just us, but other estate agents to understand where we can best improve.
I've thought of one actually right as we sit here, which would be, I think, a really good one. First-time seller. So everybody talks about first-time buyer. We've talked a lot today about somebody who's selling, who's lived there for 20 years.
Yes.
We would like to do, definitely like to do a first-time seller podcast. So if you've recently sold as a first-time seller, if you are thinking of selling your home for the first time, or if you're in the middle of that process, get in touch with us, because I'd love to get a podcast with the two of us and maybe a couple of different people to talk about the issues of the first time you sell your home, because most time when you buy it, you forget what you have to do. 5 years later, you come to sell it and it's like, oh, what's this all about? So first time seller, we'll do one of those very soon. Candice, thanks as always. Jack, who does these for us, thanks as always for these. And we'll see you soon on the Sunday Property Breakfast podcast specials. Don't forget, 10 o'clock Sunday mornings, we still do the normal breakfast. Thanks very much. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Sunday Property Breakfast podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. Please feel free to share it with anyone you know who you think might enjoy listening in. And if you have any questions that you'd like us to answer directly, then just email hello@andersonjones.co.uk. See you next week.